Welcome back to Week 9 NFL prop picks and anytime touchdown scores with myself, Jacob Smith. Happy to be back. Week 9, tricky slate. It looks like this week. Sorry for this video coming out a little bit later than I've been doing them. I wanted to see the Aaron Rodgers interview with Pat McAfee today. That was at 3, I think 2 o'clock or something like that, 2 to 3 or 2:30 to 3. But really, really, really interesting conversation there. That's something I think me and Andrew will dive into this week and kind of talk about all the things that he talked about, the lack of questions Pat kind of asked him regarding the situation, and just the overall, just kind of his take on how he's getting treated and how he, I guess, is being vilified or demonized in the media. So, very, very interesting. If you guys haven't seen that, go check that out. Really, really interesting. He's on there every Tuesday, Aaron Rodgers Tuesday. It's good to hear NFL players, specifically such as like Aaron Rodgers, who's a superstar and doesn't really have that leeway to kind of talk openly about things, have an avenue while he's still playing through the Pat McAfee show to kind of speak freely and kind of talk about his mind. But before we dive into our week 9 picks, just want to give a quick shout out to Sports Interaction. We have a bonus code with them, Canada's official sports book. So $100 gets you $125 free bet. You can use those on any bets on Coolbet. Preferably, I'd like you to use them on the ones that I'm going to give you because they're going to be winners. So free money if you lose it, whatever. Hey, not your money. But you got to be 18 plus to gamble with Sports Interaction, and gamble responsibly. Only bet what you're willing to lose. There's no point of losing all your money on on other people. I guess you might as well bet on yourself if you're going to bet all your money. But diving into week 9, I just kind of want to recap week 8 a little bit. Week 8, we went 2-1. Zach Moss. I just kind of want to dive in first. Obviously, I said Zach Moss because he was our only loser. But the last 2 weeks, I've talked about game script and kind of how I thought games were going to go. And it's kind of gone the complete opposite and kind of made myself look foolish there. Zach Moss and the Buffalo Bills were in a very tight game this week. Thought he was going to be able to punch one in, but they didn't really use him the way I thought they were going to use him. And obviously, with the game being close, the game script that I was talking about with them kind of feeding Zach Moss a lot went out the window as well. Josh was throwing the ball a lot more. Stephon Diggs had a touchdown in that game. Pretty good game. But also the week before, I talked about Cordell Patterson game script. Doesn't run the ball very much. More of a receiving back. We went with the receiving yards over the anytime touchdown score. The rushing yards, oddly enough, he went over on rushing yards, and his touchdown that he scored was a rushing touchdown. So for this week, I refuse to go in depth about game script. But the other 2 picks that we cashed on this week, last week, were Joe Mixon anytime. I said that was the lock of the week. That was a really easy one. He cashed one in. He's been dynamite this year. Not going to give him out this week, but always worth a look, especially for a guy of that caliber and the way they've been using him. A pick that Andrew actually mentioned to me today. I'm not going to give it out because I'm not sure if most sports books have it or not, but he really likes Joe Mixon's 15.5 rushing attempts over. So that could be one. If you guys a sports book, you guys have that, you want to bet on Joe Mixon, but not necessarily the anytime touchdown score. Over 15.5 rushing attempts is apparently a good bet this week, according to my co-host out with the Andrew McGinnis on the Game of Inches. And then the other bet we cashed was TJ Hawkinson over, I said take it 3.5, 4.5. It came out at most places at 5.5. I hope most of you guys still took that, even though I kind of suggested otherwise. I found it at 4.5, and I got it was minus like 167. So it wasn't a huge money maker, but I knew that was going to be a lock at 4.5. And I think he had 7 receptions in that game. So that one cashed comfortably. Hopefully you guys were on that 2-1 last week, hoping to piggyback off of that momentum. But going into our first pick this weekend, I would say this is my best bet of the week. And that is Marquise Hollywood Brown, anytime touchdown scorer versus Minnesota. The lowest price I seen that coming in at was minus 120, and that was only at one sports book. Most of the other sports books, if not all of them, had him plus money, at least plus 100. So definitely think this is worth a shout. He has 6 touchdowns in 7 games this year. So one game he had 2 touchdowns. So there's twice this season he hasn't scored a touchdown. Coming off a bye week, I think this is a really good spot against a really crappy Minnesota secondary. We saw Cooper Rush of the Dallas Cowboys last week absolutely light this defense up. He looked pretty good, I would say, for a guy that only threw one passing attempt in his entire NFL career, which I think was 4 or 5 seasons thus far. And he went out there and balled out on that defense. Daniil Hunter's out for the season on that defensive line. Huge loss for their pass rush. And I just feel like Hollywood Brown has been a stud this season. Lamar is being a lot more confident in the pocket. He's standing in a lot more and he's throwing the ball deep, and they're using Hollywood for what they drafted him for, which is a deep threat. And I feel like just at this spot and this price this week, it's too hard to pass up. And again, it's like Joe Mixon last week, where I feel like at this price, you just can't pass it up. The way he's been playing, the kind of trends he's been on throughout the season, he looks like he's going to score more times than not if it's somebody throwing through the air. I know Rashad Bateman's there now. He's back from injury. He's listed as questionable going into the game, I believe, but I think he might have practiced limited today, so he probably is going to play, but that doesn't really overly concern me. If anything, that just kind of goes to show that maybe there's another weapon there, and we could free Marquise Hollywood Brown up even more. And yeah, I just, again, not to keep crapping all over the Vikings defense, but again, Cooper Rush made them look silly. Amari Cooper had a really good game. CD Lamb had a really good game. And if a guy that's only thrown one passing attempt in the NFL in his entire career, I know you don't have any tape on him really, so you're not sure what to expect, but like, there's kind of a reason that guy's probably only thrown one passing attempt up until that point in his career. And I feel like as a defense, you should just capitalize on that. And it was the complete opposite. It was almost like Mike White from 2 weeks ago, where he hasn't really thrown any passes and he just came out and balled out. So we'll see maybe if Minnesota bounces back this week and puts the pressure on Lamar a little bit more. But I just feel like with Lamar's dual threat of being able to run the ball and now being a much better pocket passer, this is a really good opportunity to get his number one receiver at plus money. Latavius Murray's questionable. Don't have a lot of faith in Tyson Williams and Devonta Freeman. So to me, it just kind of compounds that Hollywood Brown is a good pick this week, especially at plus money. Also, Mark Andrews is still there. Mark Andrews had an up and down season. I think Hollywood's kind of separated himself as the number one guy there now. And just for that simple fact, if we can get him at plus money, I think that's the bet of the week. And I think you guys should really lock that in. But moving on to our second pick, and kind of piggybacking off the tight end theme the last 3 weeks, we're going to go with Hunter Henry anytime TD at Carolina. So this is definitely the value play this week that's coming in at plus 220 to plus 260. Hunter Henry had 4 games in a row leading up into week 8. And he didn't get a touchdown in week 8. So we had 4 weeks in a row leading up to week 8 with a touchdown. Week 8 didn't have a touchdown. I feel like this is a pretty good bounce back spot. Carolina hasn't looked the best as of late since McCaffrey's went down. And I know McCaffrey is expected to be back on Sunday, or at least those are kind of the early reports. I don't know if he's going to be playing on Sunday. But to me, Hunter Henry is I won't say the only receiving option, but the receiving option, for the New England Patriots. We talked about Damian Harris being the primary, I would say, red zone threat right now, just because Bill Belichick being the coach obviously doesn't want to turn the ball over down in the red zone when they do get down there. So they feel a lot more confident, I think, throwing the ball on second and third down and letting Harris take maybe the first down or the first and second down to see if he can punch one in. But play action, I think Hunter Henry's always a threat. We know Bill loves the play action. He's run heavy, so that play action catches defenses off guard, especially down on the goal line where everybody's kind of antsy and jumpy trying to make that play. It's easy to fool the defense, I think, with the play action down on the goal line. And the last couple weeks leading up until week 8, that's how Hunter Henry's got a lot of his touchdowns, have been kind of either bootleg play actions or just red zone targets where he's cashed. And obviously, we've talked about it a lot, being on the start of the trends versus the end of the trends. And I know Hunter Henry's coming off a week where he didn't score a touchdown, but New England had a dogfight of a game last week against the Chargers. I don't think either offense looked particularly good. Both teams struggled at times. It was very much a defensive battle. New England ended up prevailing in that game. And I feel like this is just another really good bounce back spot where we can get a guy who's the number one receiving option, the number one, I think, red zone receiving option at a crazy plus 220 or plus 260. And I think that's really, really good value for it coming at the end of his hot streak. And to me, like, that could be a little worrisome, but at the end of the day, the top guys are always going to perform. And Hunter Henry has been a top tight end in the league for a very long time. And I feel like Bill knows his capabilities in the red zone, and he's just going to keep using him and he's going to keep feeding him down there. So for me, this is absolutely the value play this week. Hunter Henry, anytime touchdown at Carolina, plus 220 to plus 260. Again, carrying on with the tight end theme, I feel like you can get a lot of value. And sometimes you get some pretty crazy matchups, like I've talked about with tight ends against Philadelphia, where Philadelphia's slot corners and middle linebackers and outside linebackers can just can't deal with teams' tight ends. That's just not the way our team's built right now. We struggle against tight ends, and you can take advantage of that. And this is I won't say Carolina's linebacking core isn't good. I would say it's middle of the road. But for a guy like Hunter Henry, who was formerly a Charger, he's had experience. He knows these types of defenses. He can find those little pockets, especially down in the red zone, and that's why he got paid the big bucks, because he is a very good blocker, but he is also a very good red zone threat. And I think Bill has realized that, and he's going to keep utilizing that as the season goes on, as they're fighting for a playoff spot, and they're going to have to not rely so much on Damian Harris just to punch them in every time they're down in the red zone. But moving on to the third and final pick. And we talked about Joe Mixon earlier. We're not going to go with Joe Mixon this week. We're actually going to go with a teammate of his. We are going with Ja'Marr Chase over 73.5 receiving yards versus the Cleveland Browns. It's coming in at about even money, so minus 110 to minus 118. For me, he's hit this every week but 1 week in the last 5 weeks. The week he didn't hit it was last week against the Jets, which, like, you know what I mean? Mike White came out there and balled out, and they just didn't look good as a team. Chase did have a touchdown, but he only had, I think, 30-something yards receiving. So overall, poor day, and especially for a team was battling for, the number one conference seed. For them to lose that game to the Jets there, I feel like that was a big letdown. And again, this is another good spot to catch somebody on a bounce back. Ja'Marr Chase has hit this, again, 4 of his last 5 weeks. In 2 of those weeks, he's had over, I think, 150 yards receiving. So this guy is absolutely balling out. Many people are saying, I guess, arguably the best rookie receiver ever. A lot of people are putting him a lot of people are putting him in their top 5 receivers currently. And this guy's only played like 8 or 9 games. He has a 200-yard receiving game. Like, what this guy's doing is just insane. And I think the connection that he has with Joe Burrow now, in combination with having other guys like CJ Uzomah step up, Joe Mixon, and interchangeably, T Higgins or Tyler Boyd, it's freeing up Ja'Marr Chase, where he's not just a guy, he's not the only guy as a receiving option or out of the backfield that teams have to key on, because any given week, T Higgins is a 2nd round pick. I'm pretty sure Tyler Boyd was a pretty high draft pick. CJ Uzomah's been putting in work the last couple of weeks. Joe Mixon is a bona fide, reliable, I think, 60 to 80-yard rusher a game, and he's gonna get his carries, and he's gonna be able to punch one in probably almost every game. So that's freed up Ja'Marr Chase a lot, and we know Joe Burrow likes to push the ball down the field. And just coming up against a Cleveland team who, I won't say their secondary has been bad, but I would say their defense has kind of been a little bit of a letdown this season. It's been the one thing I think they've been able to cling on to, though, at the same time, because like that offense just looks horrible. The only thing good about that offense is the offensive line, and whoever the running backs coach is, that guy is just an absolute machine. Nick Chubb. Obviously, Kareem Hunt had experience, but adapting Kareem Hunt into his role and making him more of a, I would say, not just a receiving back, but he's just, I would say, more well-versed since he's gone to Cleveland. He can rush the ball. He's still a heavy rusher, downhill rusher, but he can catch out of the backfield, make people miss, and just kind of be the old Kareem, but in a new way. And then we got Johnson, who 2 weeks ago, who just looked like an absolute beast. And he scored last week as well, but he didn't have very many touches. those are the only things that I think Cleveland can hang their hat on this season. And just this is a good spot at home, divisional game to catch them napping. I just think Cleveland with the OBJ situation today, I don't know if anyone's seen that, but OBJ has been placed on waivers. I don't know who's going to claim him, but there's reports that if him and Cleveland can work out this contract restructuring, that his base salary will go down to $1 million, and that makes him much more of a viable option to not clear waivers and get claimed by a team. Where if they didn't come to this agreement and Cleveland cut him, they would owe him all of his $15 million. And this way, if someone does claim him, they're only on the hook for like 7 or 8 million. So it's actually a big difference in cap hit for an NFL team like Cleveland, who has Super Bowl ambitions and is probably going to be pressed up against the cap every year. I just don't like what Cleveland has going on this week. And I feel like it's a very good spot to catch them. And I feel like Ja'Marr Chase is that guy. Like there's no way you cannot bet on him. I think over 73.5 yards. And just like, I don't think you can not bet on him. Like, I know that's weird to say, but he's cashed it forward the last 5 weeks. And I've said that a couple times now. It's just, for me, this is almost like a no brainer again, like last week with Joe Mixon. I know we said that about Hollywood Brown as well, but this just feels like such a good spot and just such a good, coming off a devastating loss against the Jets, showing anybody in the league can beat you on your day if you're not performing at your best, and coming into a division game at home. This is just the perfect spot for somebody like Ja'Marr Chase to have like 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, just absolutely ball out in a game like this and show the NFL why he is what he is. And instead of keep rambling on here, I know this one's going a little bit longer than usual. Those 2 picks this week, I really, really like Hollywood Brown and Ja'Marr Chase. This is the first week also we haven't taken a running back in any sort. Wasn't a huge fan of the running back matchups, or if I did like the matchup, their odds weren't out yet for some reason. So like Nicholson's odds wasn't out for touchdown scorer. I thought that would probably be a pretty good one. Boston Scott's anytime touchdown scorer wasn't out yet after last 2 weeks. I thought that would be an excellent bet. That's another one. If you see later on, I think you could lock in. But yeah, this week we got Hollywood Brown, anytime touchdown scorer against Minnesota. Hunter Henry, anytime touchdown scorer against Carolina. And Ja'Marr Chase over 73.5 receiving yards. I'm Jacob Smith with your prop bets and NFL anytime touchdown scores. And I hope we get some winners again this week, coming off a 2-1 week. Hopefully we can make this week 3-0. Peace.